The sharp ones among you will realize something unusual. I'm outside. There is a reason for this, and that's because it's one of the only places in the UK where you can be safe without one of these. Nothing has killed social interaction like COVID, and we cannot wait to be rid of it. But there are no people around, which means I'm safe. Just plants and trees which aren't going to cause me any harm. Or you, unless you have hay fever, which I do. This was probably a bad idea. Shoot! Oh, for my regular subscribers, welcome back, and to those who are new to this channel, my name is Sermed and I am a doctor working in northwest London. Today I am going to be trying to map out the minefield that is the COVID-19 vaccine development landscape. You need to know a lot of technical details to fully understand this, and I'm going to try and go through it all one by one. First of all, where did vaccines start? What's in them? And what do you need to test that they're safe? And where are we across the world in the race? There are as many different types of vaccines as there are types of COVID-19 virus, and so we'll go through all of that together so anyone can understand this and make sure that we are safe, which is clearly the theme of the video today. So, the first vaccine was developed by Edward Jenner in 1796. He realized that milkmaids were not getting smallpox, which everyone else in the country was. And he, after some observation, realized that there was another virus that you could get from cows called cowpox, which was a less severe version of smallpox. As soon as you got cowpox, your body created these antibodies which protected you also from smallpox. And antibodies are not an activist group that are fighting nudity. They are a protein in your body which stops you from getting infected by certain viruses. It binds to them and inactivates them to keep your body safe from them. That is the principle behind vaccines. Sounds simple, but actually there's a lot of intricacy around it, and lots of things can go wrong when you develop a vaccine. That's why they need extensive testing. This is done in stages from 0 all the way up to 3. And phase 0 is where you test the vaccine in a lab, in a dish, or on animals. Once that shows that yes, it could be a good idea, then they take it to phase 1 trial. The answer that you need from a phase 1 trial is, does this vaccine cause harm to humans? You're not testing whether it works or anything like that, simply the dosing. In phase 2, they test to see whether the vaccine produces antibodies. Does it actually work in a small group? And in phase 3, they test whether it actually works better than the current best treatment in a very large group. So that is the general principle of vaccine testing. Right now, there are about 9 COVID-19 vaccine trials in phase 3. So they are quite far along in their testing. There were actually 5 frontrunners before today, but unfortunately, Johnson & Johnson today announced that they would be pausing their trial because there have been a severe reaction to their vaccine, which just shows you how dangerous the vaccine development game is. And we have to be very careful with it. So the main 4 frontrunners, let's go through them right now. You first got the CanSino vaccine, which was in place in China. That was the first one to start phase 1 and phase 2 testing. And that was what we call a vector vaccine. To explain what a vector vaccine is, I would like to compare it to a recipe. Now, when you read a recipe for some food, you essentially get told how to make it. Now, for proteins, they have a very similar thing, and it's called the RNA code. So what scientists do is they take this recipe and they put it inside a vehicle. You can think of that vehicle like a car that needs to make a drop-off to a certain destination. In this situation, that destination is the white blood cells. Once it makes that delivery, your white blood cells then recognize that protein and they start to make antibodies that fight against it. Then your body becomes protected against the virus. Sounds simple, right? Well, it isn't so easy. The reason why is because imagine just like a car making a drop off, that vehicle may not make it to that destination. Something could block it in that meantime. The human body is very smart and they could have antibodies to that vehicle itself. So how do you stop that from becoming a problem? Well, other trials have tried to address that, but unfortunately the CanSino trial did not. And so their production of antibodies is only about 70%. Even though it was first, it's not quite front runner because it's not winner takes all in this situation or race. So let's talk about a different vaccine. You say, well, why do we need to use a vector? Why can't we just take the virus and weaken it? And you would be very smart for saying that, because that's the traditional way that we make vaccines. So you could take the COVID-19 virus and put it inside someone's body and make sure that it was inactivated. There are a few problems with this. First of all, it's been shown that viruses can actually reactivate themselves even after you have stopped them from replicating. So that sounds quite scary, because instead of protecting someone from the disease, you end up giving them the disease, which is not what you want at all. The other reason inactivating a virus is a problem is that you have to deal with the live virus in the lab, and you need specialized equipment to be able to do that safely. You don't want an outbreak like the one that actually started this pandemic, supposedly, but to get that equipment in place, it will cost between $70 and $500 million. And that is before you've even started developing the vaccine for that specific disease. So imagine you've already spent 500 million and then you need to spend another 500 million on creating that vaccine. On average, this process prior to COVID has taken 10 years. Imagine a pandemic lasting that long. I don't know about you, but I certainly would not want to live like this for that period of time. But thankfully, some technologies have come in place, like the vector vaccine, which accelerate the process. Some companies like Sinopharm, which are a Chinese company, have actually done this inactivated process much faster than expected. This pandemic actually has hyper accelerated vaccine production because of the amount of money that's gone into it. So they started the first phase 3 trial in the UAE back in September. We are expected to get results from them around the end of October. Now there are 2 other trials and they have actually overcome some of the challenges that you get with this vector virus that CanSino unfortunately didn't manage to do, and have gotten much better results. Those are the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik 5, and the Oxford vaccine. The Russian vaccine was actually announced that it was fully licensed back in August, which was very strange, and there was a massive uproar in the international community saying that there is no way that they've managed to complete it on time. And looking into it, that was correct skepticism. The reason why is because they hadn't even tested the vaccine on phase 3 before approving it for general use. Now this is like Usain Bolt running halfway of a race and then cracking open a bottle of champagne to celebrate before it was even over. That being said, the Russian vaccine is very clever. Rather than using only one car to deliver this recipe to its drop-off point, they use 2. And that way, if it gets intercepted by the body's immune system on the way, even one being stopped means that there's a backup to still deliver that virus information to the body's immune system and create those good antibodies that we are trying to get. They've had very promising phase 1 and phase 2 results, and it's rumored that it's now out there in the open, but there was a person on a YouTube channel called RT Documentary from the inside of Russia that said it was all Western propaganda by our media outlets, and Russia actually isn't releasing this into the population, which I hope is true. I'm not sure what the truth is, but either way, it would be very dangerous if they skipped phase 3 trials. The reason why is because there is actually a principle called antibody-dependent enhancement, which means that if you don't have enough antibody for a disease, then you actually end up making the disease even more aggressive than it was in the first place, which is completely the opposite of what we want to do. And that's why phase 3 trials exist. So the last one on our list of contenders for the top spot is the Oxford AstraZeneca trial. They've done something very intelligent with the way that they've generated their vaccine, and that is they have used a disguise to deliver the recipe. If you think about it, rather than sending a car to the drop-off point that is recognizable by the authorities, which are going to stop it from delivering, they have taken the car away and they've disguised it with a new car that no one would suspect. So rather than using a human virus to deliver the recipe, they are using a chimpanzee adenovirus. They actually paused their study for a few weeks, but then they restarted because these safety concerns that were initially raised had been dealt with. So fingers crossed we'll have some results by the end of the year. I, for one, really hope that we're rid of this pandemic soon, and I hope you can join me in the next video to talk about the ways that this pandemic will end. If you are interested in that, or you even enjoy this video, just smash, hit, destroy that like button and subscribe for the next video. If you got any comments, drop them in the section below, and I wish you health and happiness. Take care.